Hey everyone, good morning, good evening, good night. Thank you for joining us today for this session of our Microsoft Entra Verified ID webinar series. My name is Harris Podell, and I'm a product marketing manager for Verified ID. And I'm joined here with Rohit today. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Good day, everyone. I'm Rohit Gulati. I'm a principal product manager in Microsoft Entra team. I focus on Entra Verified ID, and I work with customers and partners to help them get through this journey. So, with that, let's kick off. Aris, over to you.
Awesome. Thanks, Rohit. So today, our main topic of discussion is going to be how to protect your account recovery and help desk processes with Microsoft Entra Verified ID. So we'll go ahead and get right into it. So for what we're going to talk about today, I'll give a quick introduction of this use case and exactly how it really is important and something that that organizations should consider to add verification to. And then I'll pass it to Rohit, and he'll do more of a deeper walkthrough of the user flow, and then also how to set up and deploy this use case. And then at the end, we'll have a few minutes for some questions. And throughout, just want to point out that the chat is live, and we have some people monitoring there. So feel free at any point to put your questions in the chat, and someone will answer it, or we can bring it up at the end. So with that, we'll go ahead and get into it. So just to lay a little bit of groundwork here, identity verification is something that has grown into quite a big deal, and it's something that a lot of the analysts of today agree on. And so with the rise of deepfakes and advanced identity threats, identity verification is a growing concern, and something that, if not prepared for, can actually cause a pretty big price tag on some of the losses and attacks that impersonators can have. And so the key question is, with our online and our digital world today, we really want to bring in a greater sense of trust into some key digital interactions that happen almost every day for a lot of companies and organizations. And so those include onboarding, access, and help desk and account recovery, which is the main one we're going to talk about today. So with onboarding, I'll just go through these real quickly. But with onboarding, there are big issues where hackers can use deepfakes to impersonate someone's appearance online, and go into remote interviews completely as a different person, and then someone can be hired on mistakenly, and organizations can bring in those impersonators into their organization and be at risk there. With access, there's a lot of regulations over data and access, and who should be able to have access to certain data and sensitive processes. So whether it's your industry is financial services, healthcare, education, even there's a lot of structure around who can access certain data and who can access sensitive resources. And so within help desk, there are examples where attackers can get in. They can pose as employees, smooth talk their way through an IT call, and get access to an organization's internal workings there. And so these are just some of the issues that we're going to be honing in on today. And so where Verified ID comes in is it introduces that level of trust and also can help make some of these processes more efficient. So like I said, today we're going to mainly focus on help desk and account recovery today. And if you want to learn a little bit more about some of these other processes, we cover those in some of our previous webinar series. So if you want to take a look at those and also learn more about setup and how to build Verified ID from the ground up, you can go to aka.ms/verified ID webinars to look at those. And so one thing I just want to point out here is, I mentioned that there can be a pretty big price tag on some of the damages that can occur from help desk and account recovery type impersonation. And so there is one larger entertainment company in 2023, just as an example, where there is an impersonator who, just through a 10-minute phone call with the IT desk, they were able to impersonate an employee and get access to that company's internal data, their internal workings. And that company had to shut down their operations for a short period of time and lost around $100 million in damages from that attack. So like I said, this is something that is a pretty big deal. And if your organization is not prepared to verify its employees when trying to access these remote help desk scenarios, there could be potential consequences at any moment. So we want to help you guys get prepared to handle that today. So here's our main question that we want to answer. When someone does contact your help desk or tries to recover their account, change some key information on an account, how can you be sure that that user is legitimate and not impersonating a trusted user or trusted employee? So I'll show you just a quick demonstration of how that might look by implementing verification into your online help desk service. So at the beginning of this demo, we'll have an employee who they have their employee card, their digital credential here that you see on the left. And so this credential has their information from when they onboarded. It has a picture that comes from a sensitive identity document, such as a driver's license or government ID. So all someone has to do is go to their Microsoft Authenticator app, scan the QR code, and you can see that digital credential is already there loaded. And so to make sure that it's the right person who's actually using the credential, that person will start their face check. And all that does is it compares the live footage that you see on the screen with the picture that is stored on their credential. And so one thing I want to point out here is that this process actually is privacy respecting. So the image that is taken from the selfie footage is not something that is actually shared with the help desk. So if you can see under step 3, there's a face check score that says about 91%. That confidence score, which is the certainty that the product has of matching the person, the selfie footage to the picture that is on the ID, that 91% is what gets passed to the organization, not actually the picture itself. So I just want to point that out, but now we just had quick 3 easy steps for someone to access their help desk, and they're verified. We know that it's the right person using the credential, and then they're in and can recover their account or do whatever help desk task that they need to. So now I'll just talk quickly about some of the benefits, use cases here. And so, like I said, it's just a quick, easy 3 steps for a user to go through this. And some of these benefits include that it becomes much easier to access the help desk or recover your account. As you saw in the demo, it was just quick, easy steps to be verified and have access, rather than having to wait or play the 20 questions game. I'm sure a lot of us have had the experience where you're sitting there for 30 minutes, an hour, who knows how long, with while you're waiting for a help desk. And so that's an area where verified ID can help. And also, like I said, we have an increased trust in the help desk operations, just due to the fact that the help desk and the organization will know who it is that is trying to gain access to the account and gain access to the help desk through that face check. And so it just makes everything a lot easier, a lot more secure if you do get locked out, to have these quick and easy, but also trustworthy processes to verify who exactly it is trying to gain access to the help desk or trying to recover an account. And so the two main scenarios we have, first one being help desk. This is pretty much what you saw in the demo. And so it's a relatively straightforward flow where someone wants to change their password, edit their account settings, do something else that should be a protected action from the help desk. They can navigate to the help desk and then present their employee verified ID that they were given as part of their onboarding, and complete that face check to ensure that it is in fact the right person using that verified ID. And after that certification is done and the face check is completed, then the help desk will accept the valid verified ID, assuming that the confidence threshold is reached, and then they will have access to the help desk. The flow for account recovery is similar. Maybe someone lost their work device, or they got locked out of their account and need to regain access. Similarly, an employee can navigate to an organization sign-in page. If they have this configured, there'll be an option for them to recover their account from there. And so in a similar flow, but with some slight variations that Rohit will go into more detail on, an employee can complete a verification with an identity verification provider, who is a third party that is able to create that level of trust with someone's government ID and give them a verified ID that way. And so after completing a verification with an identity provider, the employee can then present that new verified ID and complete a face check to regain access to their account. And I just want to point out quickly, this is something that we have customers using today. There are customers that have enacted this verified help desk flow, and it's something that has given a lot of results for our customers. So with this company, BMO, for example, they introduced a help desk that incorporates verified ID and face check to protect their C-suite level accounts, their admin level accounts. They wanted to introduce that extra level of protection for the users that have more sensitive access or more access to sensitive information and data. And so by implementing verified ID with face check, they were able to not only protect those accounts from impersonation, but also had some pretty major gains in efficiency by shortening the wait time for validation of gaining access to those accounts through the help desk. And so if you want to read this story in full or check out more customer stories, you can go to aka.ms/verified ID customers. So with that, I will pass it off to Rohit, and he can dive into the details of how to work with these different flows.
All right. So for the second part of our talk, let's look at user flows and the admin process. If you have to bring in verified ID verification in your help desk process, or even any remote verification process, what you need to do with the service. So before you bring this live in your environment, obviously you have to bootstrap your environment with verified ID. What it will mean is your users need to have a verified ID with them. You could always do something like the storyboard that I'm going to show. It could be like, let's say, an email campaign where you give some instructions to your users. It could also be something like you could flash it on your intranet. And like in this example, user received an email. It took the user to a link. I'm sure in most cases, your users have Microsoft Authenticator app. The next step for them would be either they get a verified employee, which is a verified ID based on claims coming from Entra ID as a directory. And it's very simple to get that. Once you enable this service, you will see under myaccount.microsoft.com, if your admin has published this credential to be available to your scoped users or to everybody, it'll show up under Get My Verified ID just below the profile photo. So as a user, you click on this link, use your Authenticator app, scan the QR code, and get this verified ID. Let's just see it in action. How does this flow work? So I'm going to show you via a video. So I'm connected to myaccount.microsoft.com with my login profile. I click on Get My Verified ID. It shows me a QR code. Using Authenticator app or Camera app, I just scan this QR code and I can accept this verified employee card, which is available from my directory. And it has details about me, including my photo from the directory. Now, a lot of times you may not have a good quality photo in your directory. Maybe users prefer uploading their personal photos, or maybe a photo of a dog or a cat, and you do not trust your photos in the directory. Then you can look for another pattern where maybe you issue such credentials to your users using an identity verification flow. And you can build this kind of a journey. The same email campaign can have a link which takes the user to an identity verification partner. And we have done integrations with 11 such partners. You can find that information on our product documentation, but you can bring in any partner that can do REST API based call. Like in this example, I clicked on a link, which is step 3. I was taken to a portal. I did a live selfie. I uploaded my government document. And then basis that document verification and OCR scan, I was issued a verified identity card using my government document, and I can accept this card in the Authenticator app. Maybe I'll show you a quick demo for that too. So think of it like that onboarding portal where I just apply some basic details about me, and you can build this journey where a user clicks on next. This could be a web journey or a mobile journey. In this case, it's a mobile journey. I'm selecting my country. I will then select the type of government document that I would like to present. In this case, it's a driving license. And the process would take my selfie. It'll prompt me to take the scan of the front side of the document. Once it kicks off the camera, it'll allow me to do that kind of a process. You could see I'm taking a front scan of my driving license, and then I could take the backside. So I'll take the backside scan as well. And the services would use cognitive services OCR scan to pick up claims, verify the user against government databases, and then issue a verified ID, which is a verifiable credential. A user can then just in the same experience, click on open, accept this card in Microsoft Authenticator app. And now I have this government ID based card in my wallet. Now, in my environment is Bootstrap. I'm going to show you one such pattern you can implement. How do you bring in verification to your help desk? The example that I'm going to show to you is like a web journey, a user interacting with a web channel of the help desk portal, but it can be an IVR channel as well. We have few customers who have done that. When a caller calls up at the IVR, using that voice flow, a user can be prompted to initiate the verification. So I'm going to show you one such example for a web journey. It could be as simple as your admin introducing this new button, or maybe some change in the existing button. User clicks on get support, that generates a QR code. Think of QR code more like a facade. It's all about taking that journey from a web browser to user's mobile screen. So as a user, I scan this QR code. Basis the two options I showed you, either an employee credential or verified identity credential, I can then select one of the two cards. I can then go through a face check journey. And once I click on share, the service will verify my verified ID and also look at the confidence score of the face biometric match. And in this case, you could see the user, Anna, she got verified. The help desk portal could take some claims like name and UPN. And then your systems can use this kind of claim data to do automation tasks. So you could build an AI agent that just takes this data, takes user principal name or email, and does a graph call to Entra ID to do activities like account update or password reset or temporary access pass generation, the tap code generation. So it is as simple as that. And what we have done, we have also published this storyboard with a working sample, which is what I'm going to show you today. How do you bring that sample to life? The short link to it is aka.ms/vc sample. And then you can access this sample under the .NET section in the GitHub repository. Now, let's see that as a flow first. I'm going to show the user view, how a user will play and work with the sample. Think of it like that same environment where user is clicking on, let's say, an IDEMIA app. They are seeing a QR code on the screen. They just scan this QR code. The user is presenting their government ID-based credential. User is doing a face check transaction. The service, you can see, is collecting this liveness metadata signal. And once the user completes this process and clicks on share, you will see the service will verify the verified ID as well as return back the confidence score. This is a demo website, so we have printed the result on the page. And you will see in the sample, we have options where you could send this result payload as a API response to your ticketing tool. So Let's look at that, and let's now go into the weeds of how do you bring this to life in your network, using maybe just this sample as an inspiration. You do a quick proof of concept and then customize it and connect it to your ticketing tool, which could be uh, tools like ServiceNow, BMC Remedy, Zendesk, any tool that can understand REST APIs. You can bring this to life in your network. So let's now look at the fundamentals first. Uh, we've been talking about verified ID, we've been talking about verifications, but what is this verified ID? It's a managed verifiable credential service that will allow you to do issuance and verifications of verifiable credential. If you see the screenshot on the right, it has got 3 layers. Um, the first screenshot is for the Entra portal or the Azure portal, where as an admin, you can define the schema of the credential. I spoke about 2 options like verified employee and verified identity. You could always make a custom credential. You could also make training credential, transcripts, alumni, and you can have various such patterns. The middle section is about the APIs. Um, we offer two large sets of API. One is the admin API, the actions that you do on the Entra Admin Center or the Azure portal. If you would like to do the same actions in your control panel, or you want to execute some remote task, maybe through your CMDB, ITSM tools, then you can use the admin API. Uh, we also offer client API, or what we call as request API, that allow you to uh, build those issue and verify functions. Like in the demonstration you saw before this section, we showed that a user is clicking on a button that generate a QR code, and user scans that QR code to accept the card. That's an issuance flow. And the other pattern was the user went to help desk flow, initiated a QR code scan, did a face check. That's a presentation flow. So we offer both issuance and presentations endpoint. And the last piece is that wallet piece. The snapshot talks about Microsoft Authenticator. Think of Microsoft Authenticator as a super application. Verified ID is just one part of it. What we have done is we've open sourced the Verified ID Wallet SDK, both for iOS and Android. Uh, we would obviously like you to use Authenticator because you may be using it for your MFA passwordless scenarios. But let's say if you have your own mobile app and your users are more comfortable using that, then you could always take this verified ID wallet SDK and then make it part of your existing business process. And you can see there is a link on the doc, aka.ms/verified ID docs. You can read about how to use the wallet library. We have sections for both Android and iOS. And on the Android repo, you will find a sample wallet as well. Now let's double click into request API, because that's how you will first of all get to the flow, and then we will do the GitHub sample deployment. First things first, request service API model. You will see in this slide there are 3 blocks that I'm presenting. Request API or the client API is a REST API. So we have both support for issuance and verifications. Your app needs to call this API. You will need an Entra tenant to set up a verified ID service. So you'll get your own authenticated endpoint. When your app is making a request for issue or verify, it needs to acquire an access token. So yeah, you can either set up a user access token, or you can always do an app permission token. That way, you're limiting the permission that the app can use and execute. And then once the access token is acquired, the app will initiate either an issuance request or a presentation request. You can scope the permission out also. You can have the app, you can let the app have both the roles, or you could just say, hey, you just need to verify my verified ID with face check, so I'm just gonna give you the presentation permission. Your app does a call, the service verifies the call and generates the request API or request URI. And the user will then use the authenticator app or the wallet to scan or download that request. As I said, think of QR code as a facade. You will present that QR code on a web browser, but if the user is doing this journey on a mobile browser, for them it could be just a deep link. When the user clicks on that deep link, it invokes the Microsoft Authenticator app. And the service also gives callbacks. So that way, let's say you had generated a QR code. If the user has completed the scan of the QR code, since we have sent you a callback, you can obviously hide the QR code. And once the user has completed the flow, we will send you a callback so that you can then maybe make or give a user-friendly message to the user. So you can make that kind of an interaction on your app with the callbacks. I'm going to talk about the sequence flow first, because then you'll see what we are doing in the sample. You could always then replace the verifier section in the sequence diagram with your app. As I said, we are talking about help desk. This could be any remote verification flow as well. And this is just a pattern. We are bringing verification in help desk. So think of a scenario where user is interacting with the help desk. That's step one. User clicks on, let's say, that button because it's a web journey for the user. It could be a chat journey, an IVR journey. You could build any such patterns. Then the user could, when the user hits on that verifier, the second step for it would be the app now will make an authenticated call to the verified ID endpoint, and it will generate that presentation request. So you could see step 3 is all about generating that presentation request and that QR code. The QR code will be rendered on the verifier app. If you take your mouse or hover your mouse or use the browser dev tools, you will see there is a URL openid-vc with the HTTPS request URI. OpenID-VC is the protocol handler to launch Microsoft Authenticator app. So that's what the user would do. If the user is using a camera app or any other way to scan the QR code, because of that protocol handler, it will launch the Microsoft Authenticator app. When the user scans that QR code, what is happening in the background? The user is downloading that request. And in that request, there are a bunch of elements in it. Since it's a presentation request, the request is all about user looking at the wallet. User is supposed to reply back with a verified ID, and it's supposed to do a face check. So that's what the step 6 is all about. User selects the verified ID if he or she has more than one verified ID of the same type. And then you saw in the demos, there was that selfie generation, selfie liveness metadata check process. That's where the authenticator client will help and assist the user to go through that journey. It'll tell the user if the user's face is too far from the camera. Like you can see in my video feed right now, my spectacles have a blue glare, so it'll give those kind of messages. And then once the user clicks on share, that's when the service will take the verified ID and the liveness metadata. It'll come back with the response. It'll verify the verified ID. It'll also come back with the confidence score, and it'll give back that score to the application. User will also see a notification on the Authenticator app that it was successful or failure. Now verifier has it in the application. Verifier can then pass that information to a remote system. Let's say if the verifier is your ticketing tool, it has the payload. But let's say if your verifier was just, let's say, a web application, it can use things like webhooks or just do a REST API call and does a post to the ticketing tool, the ITSM tool. So that's what we will show today. The pattern is also available at aka.ms/verified helpdesk. You can always go through that same sequence flow, and there are detailed instructions available on our documentation. Now let's look at the building blocks. First of all, verified ID. You need to have this service in your network. The service allows you to set up verified ID in 2 models. You could always choose quick setup. Quick setup is for Microsoft 365 customers who have a custom domain verified. By custom domain, I mean when you set up a M365 tenant, you have a on Microsoft.com domain available to you. You need to have a custom domain that you own, the DNS record for it, verified in your Entra ID configuration. So that is a requirement for quick setup. Uh, for both the options, either you need to be a global administrator or an authentication policy administrator. Advanced setup is for customers who would want to, maybe they're not using custom domain in their M365 tenant, but they want to manage their own verified ID private key. They will have to set up a key vault, Azure Key Vault, as a service that will do the key management. They may have a process or requirement to do key rotation on frequent intervals, and they're looking at using verified ID for high volume transactions. That's when you will use advanced setup. So choose quick or advanced. In my demo, I'll show quick, but you could always set up it in advanced setup mode. In the session we did before this, we have covered a detailed view on how do you bring quick setup or advanced setup to life. So if you have not watched the previous webinar, please go back to the previous webinar and go through the detailed steps using that. Then the second step could be once you have your service up, then you need to make sure you bootstrap your network. Option one, as I said, could be verified employee. You need to enable availability of it on my account and make sure you scope it out. Maybe you make it available for your all users or scope it to a group. If you would like to go with a different credential like government ID document based credential, then you will have to build that issuance journey like that onboarding portal demo that I showed in the past. And then the third step is our GitHub repository, the aka.ms/vc sample. That's where we will use sample 6. That's about the help desk scenario. When you would look at that sample, it has a README file. Even PMs like me who are doing this kind of demonstrations, when I see this deploy to Azure button, I will just click on it and I would like to go with the deployment as quickly as possible. But there's something I would like to call out. Please do read the instructions. There is a line just before that button which says you need to complete the setup before you kick off deploy to Azure. It's an ARM template. And there are other instructions as well in the document. So when you click on this deploy to Azure, it'll kick off an ARM template. It expects you to have an Azure subscription where this app will be deployed on Azure App Service. And in the second part of the README, there is a reference to how do you bring that Teams webhook thing to life. I've seen a lot of us missing this section. You can deploy the sample, you will have that web app running, but you will only see the result getting printed or shown on the web app. If you want to send those results to, let's say, a shared channel, then please go about adding this team section. You could always do that through app settings.json file, or you could then also look at app services configuration in the Azure portal and modify these properties there. So let's build this sample together. First, we will set up this service. As I mentioned, we will do a demonstration of quick setup. When you look at the Entra Admin Center or Azure portal and you take your mouse to Verified ID Blade, obviously you need to be a global administrator or authentication policy administrator. You will see these two options, quick or advanced. For this demonstration, we will use the quick setup option. And when I click on get started with quick setup, you will see the service will do a bunch of prerequisites check. It's an M365 tenant with the custom domain verified. And when I hit on launch, within a minute, the service will be up and online, because in the background, it'll check those prerequisites like, do I have a custom domain verified or not? And you can see the service is up and online. And on the overview blade, you will see a bunch of instructions that an admin can follow as a next step. There's an add-on section. I'm using an Entra ID free tier for the quick setup demo. All I would need to do is click on turn on. It'll give me a form to supply a subscription and map it to a resource group. If you do not have a resource group for usage, you could always create new, or you can select it from the drop down. It'll prompt you to do validation so that it can check for the resource provider. And when you hit on turn on, the service will be on in this particular subscription. And it's built for 25 cents per transaction. This was a demo from Entra ID free tenant. But let's say if you have a tenant with Entra Suite license in it, the Entra Suite license allows 1:8 kind of a model. In this tenant, you see there are 250 Entra Suite seats. So I can do 2,000 transactions as a part of that 1:8 model. And that number 1:8 is at the tenant level, not at the user level. So as a tenant, I can do 2,000 transactions in a given month. And if I go beyond that, I'll be charged 25 cents per transaction. You still have to do that Azure subscription resource group mapping to turn it on in this environment as well. And now, once this service is on, all you need to do is when you are making a presentation call to the presentation endpoint, along with the verified ID request, you will add just 3 lines of code so that your app can call for a face check in the verification. You will call the face check configuration and then supply the metadata that you need to have a source photo claim name as maybe photo or picture. That's the claim name from the source verified ID, which is verified employee in this case. And I've set a threshold for 70%, which means I expect the match should be at least 70%. If it's below that, the verification will fail. In the callback, you will get the result. If it's above 70, the callback will give that kind of a response as well. Now let's look at setting it up. I'm gonna do this demonstration as well. I'll play this video. I'm right now in the GitHub repository, aka.ms/vc sample. If you scroll down, you'll see samples in various languages. For this demonstration, we'll use .NET. And then there are a bunch of samples. You'll see sample 1 is a basic verified ID sample. Sample 2 is Entra ID integrated. For this one, we will use the help desk one, the number 6. You could always use VS Code Visual Studio to configure this sample. For this demo today, I'm going to use the ARM template because I want you to get this set up running in 8 minutes. There are a bunch of instructions on the README. You will be prompted to supply your tenant environment details. And as I was calling out, there is a section on Teams, so don't miss that. So I'll launch deploy to Azure button. It'll open an Azure portal experience. I'm a owner of a subscription. I'll be setting an app service using this ARM template. So once the login session is initiated, I will be presented with a ARM template. All I would do is specify a resource group or create a new one, give a name to the web app. And this is important. Please, you will be using this name in the subsequent steps because we'll need to configure it with managed identity. I'll specify my DID authority. You can find that using organization settings in Verified ID Blade. And then I'll hit on create. The service will look at validating this template. And then it'll submit the deployment and it'll start the deployment. So in that ARM template form, I supplied the app name. And as I mentioned, you need to capture it because you'll use that to configure managed identity and the DID authority. Now you could see that my app is deployed. It went fine. All I would do is now go to my next step. I'm into that resource group. I'm going to launch this app. I need to configure the managed identity. So there's also a section which talks about that, which is very important. So there are sections where it talks about how do you configure the Teams hook. Now let's look at the managed identity section. You need to make sure your the app that you have, the manage identity toggle is turned on. So we'll go to settings tab, hit on identity, and it should be set on. So I have a identity available. Since I'm already logged into the Azure portal, I launch the Cloud Shell from the same session. That way I'm already authenticated. Once the session is on, I will go back to that GitHub README. There was a PowerShell section available, which will help me configure this managed identity with the presentation permission. Remember, I said the app needs to acquire an app token. What we will do with this PowerShell script, we'll make sure the managed identity that we have for this app can make a presentation request. So this PowerShell is installing the Azure AD module first. It is setting up the MSI, and once it is done with this sleep for 10 seconds, you'll see it'll have the new Azure AD Service Principal role assignment thing, and I supplied some details to it: the app name, and the tenant ID, and my app is up and online. If I launch now the app, let's just give it a few seconds. Now the app is online. I'm going to show you a verification flow. So I clicked on, I already have my card. It'll generate a QR code. As a user, I'll scan this QR code, and I'll be prompted to present my verified employee. I will do a quick face check with the flow. And yeah, since I was going through I was very serious while I was recording this demonstration, and that's what you saw. You could see the app taking the liveness signals, and when I clicked on share, the result will be printed on the web app. But there was another thing to it, right? We had to look at sending this result to a remote system. For this app, we are using Teams as an option. Maybe in your network too, you may have IT using shared Teams channel. In Teams, there's an option to set up incoming webhook. So you can follow this document. How do you create an incoming webhook? I have a Teams session open on the browser. I'll create a new channel called IT support. I'll keep it as standard, and I'll create this channel. Once this channel is online, I will right click on the channel and say manage channel, and then the bottom section which says connectors, I'll click on edit, and I'll search and look for incoming webhook. I'll configure this connector, and you could see it'll ask you to specify the name of the connector, the hook, and I'm just saying IT support. You can obviously change the logo, and you hit on create. Once this process is complete, it'll generate a webhook link for you. So we'll wait for it to finish this creation task. Now I can copy this link to clipboard. I can go back to the app service configuration. Under environment variables, I can see there are two variables called Teams webhook. Is the webhook on or off? So I'll specify the webhook URL, the thing that I copied on my clipboard, and I'll set the webhook to true. When you hit on OK and say apply, it'll ask you to restart the web service. So so let's just do a quick thing, and the web app is going through a restart process. And now once the service is back online, I can show you that we can again kick off a verification flow. I'll just refresh the browser session, and I'll again hit on I already have my card. That way I can generate a presentation request. I'm bringing in my phone mirroring so that I can show that face check transaction to you. The web app is online. It generates a QR code. All I'm doing now is scanning a QR code, picking up my verified ID, going through a face check transaction. And once this face check is, the client is done with capturing my screens. And when I hit on share, this time, when I hit on share, along with what you see on the page, HTML page, you will see the same notification will be available on the IT support channel. You could you can always look at see there's a new post on the IT support channel, and the face check score was available on a Teams webhook too. So you can easily bring this to life in the network as well. I'm going to just extend this a bit more just to show you how you can use another sample and maybe bring in temporary access pass to the flow too. We have another sample called sample 5 onboard with tap. I'm going to just show you a part of the sample. I'm not going to deploy this sample. All I would do is just do a very high level demonstration. It has the same ARM template. It has got two sections, employee or guest onboarding. Think of it like when you are onboarding your B2B guest, can I bring in that verification? So my point, can I do remote verification with verified ID? Yes, you can follow that pattern. Make sure when you're using this sample, your app has the right graph permissions. And there's a table of content available on the README that talks about what kind of permissions are required for what scenario. So you can see there are two sections in the sample. And then there is a common section as well, like the callbacks that we are doing, the helper file to get the authentication token, and so on. So when you hit on setup instructions, you will see the sample has got a bunch of details in it. I'm going to just move ahead in the sample. You can see if you are going with the tab code thing, it'll prompt you to set up some basic things like setup tab, scope it out, define the lifetime of obviously tab codes. You will keep it for, let's say, 15 minutes in the network. And you will see that the app would send out and generate a link. We are making sure that the link the web application is generating is a signed link. Think of it like that onboarding link the user will get. So it is a signed link with key stored on keyword that was there. So I'm just going to show you a quick demonstration on this one too. The scenario here is onboarding a user. I'm onboarding a new hire. It's an email that went to user's personal email account because it's a new hire scenario. And what is happening for this new hire? The name that I gave for this new hire was Paul. So I'm going to just make sure that the object was created, but the user is still not live. I need to make sure the user goes through a verification. So in this application, there's a link called Get Onboarding. That link is a signed link. You could always send that link on email. A user will go through identity proofing because it's a user with no reference in your directory. User can go through this identity verification flow, get through a government set of documents. And once the user has this kind of a card, user will have this blue card. User can then present this card to the onboarding application. Here it's just about scanning the QR code and presenting this QR code with true identity. User hits on next. The verification will verify the verified ID. You could add face check to it, and it simple generates a temporary access pass. So this is just another addition that you could do to your help desk scenario, and you can support account recovery flows as well. So there are other patterns also you can use this verification model for. We spoke about help desk and account recovery. There are things you could add to your secure access model too, like you may be using access packages in your network where users are doing self-service to resources. You can bring in verified ID integration with face check with that too. You could always bring in verifications through verified employee or a verification through a credential that was used or issued by a government ID verification. And once that verification is successful, the user can be auto approved for the particular app or a privileged Entra role as well. So we have customers using it for Entra role elevation as well. Please do look out for that case study on our verified ID customers page too. And obviously, this whole process can be automated. You could use this pattern for maybe re-verifying your privileged admins in your network too. Like You could make sure the access package expires for an extension, this whole process, or maybe you look at recertification of your admins through this process. You can implement this today with entitlement management. Let's just see this in action. A scenario could be, as a user, I get this link. I'm going to play this demonstration. A user gets a link where he can follow a request access flow for getting access to finance resources. This is something an admin has configured in the network. And as the user sees this email, there are a bunch of instructions available. User can hit on request access. When it is a my access link, user clicks on that link. It has a group, it has SharePoint apps, and it has a group team as well, which is sales team. The user scans the QR code. It prompts the user to launch the authenticator app. It selects verified employee, and then user goes through a face check process as well in this mix. So user hits on start. User has been told to keep the phone steady. You can see the interactions that we offer. And if the user is too far from the phone, there will be a message like that for the user. The liveness was captured. The user hit on share. And once the user clicks on submit request, the verification result and the verified ID claims will be used by access package to complete that provisioning task. And then the user can have access to resources. You could always add further extensions to it using the custom extension option. So with that, I'm going to pass on the baton back to Harris so that he can help us do a wrap up. Harris?
Sorry about that. I was on mute there. But just to wrap up real quick, one thing that we really want to emphasize on the slide here is that you really can get started with this today. So Rohit thankfully walked us through all the different samples and demonstrations to show us how to set this up. So if we look at the slide real quick, you can see that you can first get things set up really quickly with quick or advanced setup, and then you can also immediately start issuing and verifying your employee credentials to your selected users, and enable face check just with that one click there at the bottom. And so if you want to see more tutorials about how to set this up and other use cases, you can go to aka.ms/verifiedIDdocs. So now we'll answer some questions, but we really appreciate you guys joining us today. And it looks like we do have one question from the audience that says, what if you have facial hair and then you cut it later? So this is actually a question that we get pretty frequently. And so I feel like the overall question here is, people, they change their appearance, grow their facial hair, cut their beard, maybe dye their hair. Will face checks still work? And so the answer to that is that the short answer is yes, it will, because the way that face check works, it scans the planes of your face and doesn't necessarily rely on all the superficial appearances. However, it is dependent on the confidence score that you set for the verification. So as Rohit showed earlier, the default is 70%, which gets you quite a good level of certainty of who is using the credential that's being presented. But if there's content, data, whatever it may be, that is even more sensitive, an organization can choose to make that confidence score higher. However, if the higher you make it, then maybe there would be some risk to someone who might be the right user, and due to maybe the beard that's new or lighting or whatever it may be, if you have the confidence score too high, then that might cause some issues with verification there. So it's all about striking that balance. 70% is a great place to start, but if there is more sensitive information, you can make it higher.
Yeah, so Harris, I see there's a linked question as well as a follow-up. So let me state the question and then let me take that. So the question from the audience is, if a user uploads their own photo in the Entra ID directory, how will face check work, and what would it validate the live selfie footage against? So there are two parts of the question. If a user uploads their own photo in Entra ID, if you do a quick recall of what I showed in my demonstration, when you are prompting a user for face check, there is a verified ID also selected in that flow. That's part of that presentation challenge. Um, if the presentation challenge was, hey user, give me a verified employee, which is that verified ID that takes data from Entra ID directory so that the user has it on their device. So the photo that the user uploads is part of that verified employee. Obviously, user needs to have that photo in the directory before getting verified employee. It's not like that when you upload Entra photo in Entra ID, the photo will be pushed automatically to verified employee. You need to have verified employee after you have uploaded the photo in the directory, so that the photo in that becomes a source photo claim. And then when you initiate the face biometric check, the service will use that source photo as a base and compare the liveness against that photo to give you back the confidence score. So that's the second part of the question.
Okay. Thank you so much for that one, Rohit. It looks like we have another question, which is, can I use face check without Entra Suite? So this is a question that has to do with our licensing model, and so I can take that one. So Rohit touched on this during his demonstration, but there are two different paths you can take for using face check. So first things first, face check, since it is a premium feature of verified ID, you have to have your verified ID set up and working before adding face check to it. And it was just that you could turn it on really quickly just by pressing that button that we showed in the demonstration. However, you can use face check without the Entra Suite. If you use it standalone, it'll cost 25 cents per verification, and that's on a pay-as-you-go model. So you can just use it, and then you can just pay as you go consumptively. However, with the Entra Suite, as Rohit mentioned, you do get 8 face checks per license per month, and those are pooled at the tenant level, not assigned to individuals. So if your organization has 100 licenses, then you have 800 total face checks to use over the course of the month. And if you get to 801, 802 in a month, then the 25 cents pay as you go model will kick in for those incremental checks. So that's kind of the outline there for licensing. And so yes, you can use face check without the Entra Suite through those two different paths.
Great. I see an interesting question from the audience. Do I need to use Microsoft Authenticator for verified ID and face check? What if I have my own app and want to use the app that I have built, using Wallet SDK maybe, or the standards? So if you are just using verified ID in the flow, you can use it with your own app. That app could be built using Wallet SDK or the protocols, the standards that we have. But if you want to use verified ID with face check, at the moment you have to have Microsoft Authenticator app. That's the current state. We are looking at maybe making it available on Wallet SDK in the future, but for now, it's part of the Microsoft Authenticator app flow.
Let's see, we have a question from the audience that says, when you are planning to bring it's asking, when are you planning to bring verifiable credentials with conditional access policy, and also for sign in with passwordless and Entra ID? Do you want to take that one, Rohit?
Sure, I'll take that. Great question. We are on that journey. This whole recovery pattern is something you can imagine. We see our customers using it, and we are trying to do something about it to make it more simple. We are looking at these design patterns of bringing verified ID integration with conditional access policy. So stay tuned for it. We will surely do another webinar for this topic, and it is in our radar. So it's part of our roadmap.
Well, I'm not seeing any other questions. Oh, it looks like we do have one more question. I know we're at time here, so maybe this can be the last one. So the question that we have here is, how do I integrate this help desk or account recovery pattern with my ticketing tools?
Let me take this one. So just to, if you do a reflection on the demonstration I did, I showed a section where you could use levers like webhooks. So you can use the same pattern. Your application can receive the verified ID response, the callback that we sent. Your application could be a ticketing tool that is getting the callback, or it could be that onboarding application. So once it receives the callback, it can send a webhook or REST API update like a post to the ticketing tool. So we have customers, the BMO case study that Harris talked about, they are using Zendesk as a tool. We have partners who have built integration with ServiceNow, like Avanade, and there are others as well. So it's all about REST API based flows. So use webhooks and you can bring this integration in your ticketing tool very easily.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Rohit. And thank you everyone for joining us today. Just as a reminder, we'll continue to monitor the chat even after the presentation wraps, so we can address questions later as well if they come up. So this will also be on demand once the presentation is done. So feel free to watch, share with your coworkers, whoever may be interested. This can be a great resource for them. And so with that, we can wrap it up here. And thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.